Today our focus is the punctuation of direct speech. Now, as we continue to explore recount writing, it's great to see so many of you introducing dialogue to your writing, and so it's quite timely then that we now take a look at how to correctly punctuate your direct speech. I guess a good place to start is to ensure that we all understand what is meant by direct speech. So direct speech is the dialogue or the actual words spoken by a person or a character in a piece of writing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a series of sentences, all of which require direct speech punctuation or speech punctuation in slightly different forms. Our first sentence is a simple statement. "Don't forget your jacket," said Mum. The spoken part of this sentence is "don't forget your jacket," and so it needs to be identified as being separate from the "said Mum," which is additional information. So we're going to put speech marks around the actual spoken part of the sentence, and inside the second set of speech marks a comma, which also separates the spoken word from the additional information. In our second sentence, the message from Mum is exactly the same, but you'll see that the information about who was speaking comes at the start of the sentence. We tackle that this way. Mum said, comma, to separate the information from the actual spoken words. And then because the sentence that Mum said is starting with the word don't, we have to change our don't into a capital D. Because "don't forget your jacket" are the words that Mum uttered, they are surrounded by speech marks. The third sentence is a question. It is handled more or less the same way as a simple statement, except for one difference, and we'll come to that in a moment. The spoken words are, "Have you completed your maths?" And so they're the ones that are going to be surrounded by speech marks. But this time, instead of a comma separating the spoken words from the extra information, we have a question mark because the sentence uttered is a question. So that's a question mark, the full stop. It replaces the comma. Our fourth sentence is an exclamation. Dad has shouted his message. So Dad shouts, "Don't slam that door." Those are the words he says, and his sentence ends with an exclamation mark instead of the comma of the first sentence. His words are enclosed by speech marks, and that's the correct way to handle an exclamation. Our next sentence is a little more complex because you'll see that Nan has the words "said Nan" interrupt her whole speech. So let's just make sure that we understand first what the words are that she has said. We'll read it over first. "Once we've done the grocery shopping," said Nan, "we'll go to the swimming pool." So once we've done the grocery shopping, we'll go to the swimming pool. All one sentence. The extra little bit that has to be separated off from the direct speech is "said Nan." So I'm going to put a comma before that and a comma after it. Once again, speech marks surround the spoken words, but this time, because before the interruption "said Nan," we have to close that speech, that little section, if I can get my pen to work, and then we reopen her speech. We don't need to give "we'll go" a capital letter for the "we" because she is still uttering the same sentence. And then we close the speech with a closing set of speech marks. Our final sentence really requires us to remember an important rule. I'm going to read it to you first. "Can I borrow your pencil sharpener?" Bethany asked. "Sure," replied Ben, "but don't forget to give it back." Bethany's question is punctuated with speech marks opened, question mark, that's an odd looking question mark, and then speech marks closed. But the big thing to remember here is that as soon as my next speaker speaks, and his first word is sure, we actually have to start a new line. Remember, new speaker, new line. So, "Sure," replied Ben, "but don't forget to give it back." Okay, so my double line here tells us that this is a new line that our next speaker has to be recorded on. So that's a quick summary of the different types of sentences in which you're likely to have to punctuate direct speech. So I'd like to see some evidence of that in the writing that you do when dialogue is introduced.